Chosen one. Before you listen to this message, take a moment. Put down the fear you've been carrying. Put down the questions. Put down the pressure to understand everything. Because there is something God wants you to know today. You do not need to see the entire path to trust the one who is leading you. There are moments in life when everything looks impossible. You have a dream, but you don't see the opportunity. You have a prayer, but you don't see the answer. You have a destination, but you don't see the road that will take you there, and that's when fear begins to speak. What if it doesn't work? What if I fail? What if nothing changes? What if God doesn't come through? Chosen one. God says, "My child, stop trying to figure out every detail. You are looking at the problem. I am looking at the way through it. You only see the wall. God sees the door. You only see the wilderness. God sees the destination. You only see the empty hands. God sees what He can place inside them. You only see today's circumstances. God sees the entire story." Chosen one. Think about Moses. When God called him, Moses didn't feel ready. He had questions. He had fears. He doubted himself. He wondered how anyone would listen to him. From Moses' perspective, the assignment looked impossible. Pharaoh was powerful. The Israelites were trapped. The future looked uncertain. But God wasn't asking Moses to solve everything. God was asking him to take the next step. And that's what God may be asking you today. Not to understand everything, not to control everything, not to know exactly how your future will unfold. Just take the next step. Chosen one. Maybe you've been waiting for a complete plan before moving forward. You've been saying, "God, show me everything first." But faith doesn't always work that way. Sometimes God gives you enough light for the next step, not the entire journey. Imagine walking through a dark road at night with only a small light in front of you. You cannot see 10 miles ahead, but you can see enough to keep walking. That's faith. God says, "I may not show you the whole road, but I will give you enough light to take the next step." Chosen one. There was a time when Abraham had to leave everything familiar. God told him to go. But Abraham didn't receive a complete map. He didn't know every detail. He simply trusted. He moved forward. And along the way, God continued revealing the next part of the journey. Maybe that's what your life looks like right now. You want the complete answer. God is giving you the next instruction. You want the final destination. God is showing you the next door. You want certainty. God is asking for faith. Chosen one. Don't underestimate what God can do with one small step of obedience, one phone call, one decision, one conversation, one opportunity, one moment of courage, one prayer, one yes. Sometimes, your entire season begins to change because you were willing to take one step while you were still afraid. God says, "You don't have to feel fearless to move forward. You only need to trust me more than you trust your fear." Chosen one. Perhaps you've been staring at a mountain. It looks too large, too complicated, too difficult. You keep asking, "How will I ever get over this?" But maybe you're asking the wrong question. Instead of asking, "How will I do this?" ask, "What is the next thing God is asking me to do?" Because you don't climb a mountain in one jump. You climb it one step at a time. One breath, one decision, one day, one prayer, one act of faith. And eventually, you look back and realize you've come farther than you thought. Chosen one. Think about David. Before he faced Goliath, he had already learned how to trust God in smaller battles. He didn't wake up one morning suddenly possessing extraordinary courage. His faith had been developed privately when nobody was watching. That is why, when the giant appeared publicly, David already had confidence in the God he had trusted privately. Maybe your current struggle, this is where I am starting. There is a difference. A starting point is not a final destination. A closed door is not the end of the journey. A difficult season is not your entire life. A setback is not a permanent identity. And today's uncertainty doesn't mean tomorrow will look the same. God can create opportunities you never expected. He can connect you with people you haven't met. He can give you wisdom you didn't have before. He can open paths you couldn't have planned yourself. And sometimes, He will do it in a way that makes you realize you could never have planned this yourself. Chosen one. That's why you don't need to panic. You don't need to force everything. You don't need to manipulate circumstances. You don't need to chase every door. Trust God, work faithfully, pray sincerely, make wise decisions, and keep moving. Because while you're worrying about how God can already be preparing the way, you may not see it. You may not understand it. You may not even recognize it when it begins. But that doesn't mean nothing is happening. The seed grows beneath the soil before anyone sees the plant. The sunrise begins before the horizon becomes bright, and sometimes your answer begins moving before you ever realize it. Chosen one. So tonight, or whenever you hear this message, give God the pressure you've been carrying. Tell Him, Father, I don't know how everything will work out, but I trust you with the next step. You don't need all the answers. You need faith for today. And when tomorrow comes, ask for faith for tomorrow. One day at a time, one step at a time, one prayer at a time. Because the God who led you this far has not suddenly forgotten how to lead you. Your path may be unclear, but your God is not confused. Your future may be unknown, but it is not unknown to Him, and what looks impossible from where you're standing may look completely different from where God is standing. Chosen one. If you're still listening, then perhaps you've been standing at a crossroads. You know where you want to go, but you don't know how you're going to get there. You have prayed, you've made plans, you've tried to remain positive, yet there are still unanswered questions, and sometimes the uncertainty becomes exhausting. You ask, God, if this is really the path you have for me, why can't I see what's ahead? But God says, because I want you to learn how to trust me before you see the outcome. Chosen one. Faith is easy when everything makes sense. Faith becomes powerful when nothing makes sense, and you still choose to believe. Think about the disciples. When Jesus told them to cross the sea, they didn't know a storm was coming. They stepped into the boat believing they were simply going to the other side. Then suddenly, the wind became violent, the waves became dangerous, the boat began filling with water, and they became afraid. They wondered, where is Jesus? But Jesus was there. Even when they couldn't see the solution, He was still present. Chosen one. Your storm doesn't mean God has abandoned the boat. Your difficult season doesn't mean you've taken the wrong path. Sometimes, you can be exactly where God wants you and still encounter a storm. The presence of a storm doesn't automatically mean the absence of God. God says, do not judge my presence by the intensity of your circumstances. Chosen one, maybe right now, your finances aren't where you want them to be. Maybe your career feels uncertain. Maybe your plans have been delayed. Maybe your family situation is complicated. Maybe you're waiting for an opportunity. Maybe you're simply tired of not knowing what happens next. But listen carefully. You don't have to solve your entire life today. You only have to handle today's responsibility. Tomorrow has its own grace. Today's worries cannot solve tomorrow's problems. So stop carrying tomorrow before tomorrow arrives. God says, I will give you strength for the day I have placed you in. Don't borrow fear from a future you haven't reached. Chosen one. Think about the Israelites again. They were trapped between the Red Sea and Pharaoh's army. Imagine what they saw. Behind them, an approaching army. In front of them, an impossible sea. There seemed to be no solution. But they were standing in a place where human strength could do nothing, and that's often where God's power becomes unmistakable. The sea didn't open because they had figured out the solution. It opened because God made a way. Chosen one. Maybe you're standing in front of your own Red Sea. You have tried everything you know. You've asked everyone you can ask. You've made plans. You've worked. You've prayed. And still, the path looks blocked. Don't panic. Don't assume there is no way